Time now to round up one of the biggest headlines of the week. There's a new civil rights debate in the wake of the grand jury decisions not to indict police officers for the deaths of Eric Garner and Michael Brown. As protesters take to the streets across the country, civil rights leaders are calling for everything to be indicted. That would bring on major reforms to our justice system. If we micromanage grand juries, how does our justice system survive? And what are the reforms needed when it comes to our grand jury system? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page and on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26 for life. In our newsroom is our Roundup panel led by our Fox 26 legal analyst, Chris Tritico. All right, Chris, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this topic. What do you think about the calls for everything to be indicted?
Well, it's just wrong. The grand jury system is set up to vet cases so that we are prosecuting the cases that need to be prosecuted. And so can there be some reform? The reform that I see that we need in the grand jury system is integrity. The integrity of the prosecutors bringing the cases in, the integrity of the witnesses who are testifying, and the integrity of those sitting on the grand jury not to be led or make their decisions based on public pressure. The reason grand juries meet in private and the reason they're in secret is so that they are free to make decisions not based on public outcry or political reasons, but based on the facts. And if we add integrity to the system and we ensure that prosecutors who are bringing cases in have integrity in the way they're presenting those, the grand jury system works. Mustafa Tamiz is our why can't I say this? Political analyst, Jackie Valley, our public policy analyst. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
It seems to me that we've got this debate, Jackie, that's going on that and civil rights leaders all over the country are saying just indict the officers, have a public trial, and they claim that is the integrity in the system. I think that's backwards thinking, and I think if you put integrity, as I said, into the grand jury process, we have a better system.
Yeah, and we don't have the resources to indict every single case. I mean, to say that's not, they're not looking at the facts. We just don't have the resources to do something like that. Not only should we look at integrity in the people that we have on the jury, I think we need to go back and look at the law enforcement situation and make sure that we have people and police officers working together to create the environment that we're looking at. They can create the policies for law enforcement together. We can use police officers to go into the community. I've discussed this many times. Go into the community, serve as mentors, work with your community, especially where racial tension is so high. But to say that we want to have every single item indicted or every single issue come to the judicial system, there's no way we have the resources to handle something like that.
What about this, Mustafa? The civil rights leaders for weeks now have been saying just indict these officers, let's have a public trial, and that's what we need to do. And I just think that's backwards thinking.
Well, the fact that grand juries generally is a rubber stamp. There were 700 cases, all of them were prosecuted except for this one. So you question, like how many of those cases that go to grand juries don't get done. I agree with you that there needs to be more integrity in it. But if you look at some of the things about in Ferguson's case, where the prosecutor has such a close relationship to law enforcement, his father was killed by an African American. I mean, there's just so many things along that, and then that person is guiding the jury, the grand jury, through the entire proceeding where there's no one questioning anything other than the case that he's presenting. The grand jury system is not the only thing. In certain places like California, you go to a judge. The prosecutors go to a judge to ask the judge's opinion whether they should go forward with the case or not. The grand jury system needs to be looked at very carefully because I think we have a group of people that get into the pool because they have time to serve.
So let me ask you this.
Of all citizens.
Let me ask you this then. In a situation where it's like a police officer killing someone, if the DA who works so closely with the police brought in an independent prosecutor to present that to the grand jury at that point, would that be a reform that you would think would help?
Well, in this particular case, it would have helped because it would have taken this perception that the process is rigged out of it. This particular prosecutor, his father was killed by an African American. His entire family has been in law enforcement, and so it begs to differ.
Jackie, Mustafa, hang on just a second. Mustafa says that the grand juries are rubber stamping, and we've been saying that for years. The defense lawyers say that all the time. But the simple fact of the matter is, over 90% of the cases that go into the grand jury are going to be indicted. And so there are these few that we have to spend a long time looking at.
But both of you are proving the point that I was saying. We need to look at the training of the police officers themselves, hence why body cameras, that's why we're having this discussion in the earlier segment. The police officers, how they're handling these situations and how they're handling their relations with the community, that's where we need to start. We need to make sure there's open dialogue, transparency, because a lot of these cases, when there's open dialogue and transparency, the relationship is positive, you won't see the uprising that we've seen in all of these communities.
And if a special prosecutor was brought in on cases where we're investigating police officers and other public officials, would that help ease the situation we're seeing nationwide right now?
Maybe, but if there's still mistrust between the community and the officers, not really. You have to make sure that you have an open transparency, a nice public engagement in the policing and in the process. And unless that community relations and relations between the community and the police are on a better path, no matter who they bring in, you're still going to have questions and you're still going to have uprisings.